Hello, 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 hello. I have Sue Allsworth with me here, and we've realised that today is Suicide Awareness Day. And we had been chatting about it earlier, and we really felt that we would like to say something about today because I think both of us have known the dark side, and it is such an important topic that can touch so many lives. We, I've known people whose lives have been touched by this. So, Sue, what what do you want to share with us about this topic?
Yeah, as you say, hi, Janet. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it earlier today, and we talked about it, I think, briefly in the past as well when we were chatting. Um, and I think for me, I mean, I've actually attempted suicide. Obviously, it did not work, as I am living and breathing. Thank the universe for that. But this smiley face was not always a smiley face. And yourself and we again, we were talking about, we fake our smiles so much, and there's so many people out there, and I'm talking about men, women, everything. There's no discrimination here, because anyone who's human can feel depressed.
Yeah.
Anyone who's human can feel bad about their lives and can feel crap, to be fair, and low self-esteem, and it depends on what life experiences they've had as well. Health issues can cause things. So my experience was back in 1997, and a boyfriend split up with me in not a very nice way, but it was just the cherry on top of the cake. You know, looking back on it, there was a whole series of things that came up to it. But that was my first attempt at suicide. I didn't want to live, and I think it's very important for us to talk about those feelings of
Yeah.
it's okay to have the feelings of not wanting to live. That should not be a shameful thing. um, I know yourself have had feelings,
Oh,
not
definitely.
necessarily
The
acted,
thoughts.
but feeling.
Exactly. When that heavy depression that went on for a long time, as you say, there's normally a combination of events that take place, and it's total overwhelm, and you just have had enough, and
Yep.
you can't see a way of moving forward. You can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a scary place to be.
It's scary, it's lonely. um, I mean, when I was pushed, I wasn't thinking of anyone else. There's no note. There was no, I hadn't gone through a thought process. Something happened. It triggered me. And in 48 hours, I had every single emotion in the book, from being happy that I was going to move in with someone to they'd gone missing for 24 hours, finding them, blah, 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 cheating and all of that. And I literally not, I think a lot of this goes actually back to education and schools, because there's not enough talk about emotions at schools. So I just couldn't differentiate emotions. They were just all rah, in a big fireball in my head. And I didn't know what was sad. I didn't know what was angry. I didn't know what was frustrated. They were all just one big fireball of emotions. So when that last thing that pushed me over the edge, I couldn't think. I just wanted whatever was going on in my brain, or the emotion, the turmoil, to stop. And the only way I could see at the time was with vodka, and luckily the wrong kind of tablet, unbeknown to me at the time. But yeah,
But
it's not an easy place to be in your mind if you've not been given the tools to
today was
see
it.
things a bit clearer.
Exactly. And I think this is the thing, is it is sort of emotional overwhelm. It is, you know, where you're maybe also, for me, I know that it was like that I didn't feel that I was living up to other people's expectations. And there's a whole catalogue of reasons. But as you sort of say, we're not learning the skills to be equipped to deal with these reasons. I know that for a long time I suppressed, and then one little thing happened and the whole thing, like a volcano, erupted, and I just could not deal with it. And I didn't know that I could talk to people. I didn't know what help was there. In fact, I was very much brought up, as a lot of us are, is you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
For the stigma.
Sweep it under the carpet.
Exactly. And what we're both doing is work where we want to empower people, to bring people back to a space where they love themselves again, where you develop that core love. And that's, you know, but we're not taught that in school. We're not learning that in our everyday life. And that makes the difference. That makes the difference about sort of, you know, understanding and loving ourselves. But it's also, if you get to that point, is to know there are people you can talk to. There are organizations out there. They're incredible people. And if you can't
it's also, I think, important to recognize, I mean, all the organizations in the world back in 1997, at that moment in time, would not have helped me. No one saying anything at that time would have helped me, because I had emotional overload. I wasn't taking anything in as a normal human being. I was shut down. And I think that's important to say, that yes, there is help and that out there, but when you're actually really in it, sometimes, unless that help is enforced on you, it's really hard to being the person, I'm a life coach, I'm a positive person and everything now, and I know that person was me. I can still tap into the sitting in my bedroom and being grateful that my nan phoned up my mum. I knew they'd be on the phone for hours and I could do what I wanted to do. And I can sit and feel the lostness of it all. Yeah. And even a positive affirmation would not have made any difference at that moment. But it's learning that all these emotions, and that one that I felt in that moment, are just waves of a bigger ocean. And that they will, you know, when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling low, when we're feeling down, they aren't permanent. No more than happy is permanent. Waves are fluid.
Yeah. And emotions come and go. Exactly. And it's for me, it's also was recognizing subsequently now, when I always say, when I start to spiral down, I recognize that I have awareness of that, and I step into doing things. And people might say, oh, but it's not selfish. It's self-love, where I start to do the things that I need to feel good again. And you're right.
Self-medication.
I go back. Yeah. And it might be a walk in nature. It might be just listening to some music that just really helps me. And exactly as you say, realizing this too will pass.
Yes. Yeah. And I've had enough panic attacks in my time. And I had one recently this year, and I haven't had a panic attack for years. But I was on a course, a personal development course, did an exercise. It triggered something, which was why I was going on the course in the first place, because I'm in a place where I want to be triggered now, because I want to deal with all the stuff and anything that's lingering. And I woke up the next day crying and having near enough a PTSD flashback moment of the fun areas with other people I may have had in life, shall we say, and not so good, though, necessarily memories. And I have been abused by a local GP as well. So I've got a load of layers on mine, different things. But for the first time ever, I could feel it and not be scared of it, because I knew that it would end. It might take it could take a minute, it could take a few hours, but I knew that that initial panic attack, that moment, that would end, and that the best thing I could do, whereas before, like you say, we shove it down and carry on with a day, I gave into it and just felt it. And I was delicate for the day after that. But the day after that, I was back in my power, because I'd allowed myself to, at least half the battle is acknowledging it, isn't it? Don't you think?
I think so, becoming aware of it. And I think that, you know, if anyone is listening, it's also to know that there's always a solution, that there's also always a solution to an issue or problem. Because I know that some people just feel that there's not, but there is. There is. Sometimes it might mean a hard choice.
Yes.
And you may not please other people, but ultimately, you've got to do what's right for you.
Yes. You've got to follow your path, even if that looks very different to someone else's.
Exactly. And these are all things that, you know, as we've been on our healing journeys, that we've learned along the way, that we're both sharing out into the world. And it just breaks my heart, and I know it breaks yours too, is to see the suffering that's out there, that you know, we know the tools that can help.
One of the biggest eye-openers for me, and if anyone can take anything from this chat today who is not in a good place at the moment, you actually have to remember that your mind and your thoughts are actually under your control. They've just got used to thinking badly. It's like a little groove. They've made those negative thoughts of not being enough, of not deserving, make a little groove that they get very comfortable in. And that's your go-to place. But you actually do have control. If you can choose to think bad about yourself, you can actually choose and retrain yourself to think good about yourself, because you weren't born thinking bad about yourself. You weren't born depressed, you know, unless there's some physiological issues, health issues. A lot of depression is life stresses and things put on top of us, and life experiences that aren't, then you're not given counselling, or you're not dealt with properly. You just have to carry on with life, and you don't acknowledge them. And I think that's where a lot of depression comes from, is that just we go through stuff, and then hey ho. I mean, all the things that have happened to me, I've just cracked on. You know, yeah, well, that's, I was abused by a doctor, walked off a duck's back, and quite blasé about it. But actually underneath it all, that was just a front.
A mask, yeah. And I think this is the world we live in. Unfortunately, there's too much pressure on us to conform to certain box and fit into certain boxes. And once we learn that we don't have to do that, that's where the moment of pivoting our lives around.
And anything, it's like people say they're scared to do something new. Well, when you were a kid, when you first picked up a pencil, could you write? No. You had to try and try and try and keep going to perfect, you know, to get better. When you first got on a bike, could you ride a bike without falling off it? 9 times out of 10, no. When you first get in a car, you have to be shown how to do something. So these things take a while, and with your brain, you know, it's not just going to be a overnight. I'm going to look at my affirmations. I love myself. You know, you've got to feel it. You've got to start, but that will come in time. But you've got to break the cycle. For me, I realized how much negativity looping was automatic, actually, because I wasn't being mindful. Mindfulness is a good thing to sort of learn and study and become a part of, because it does get you to be more observant of your thoughts, at least. So I realized I was in my car a lot, so I put on a lot of positive, either meditations, affirmations, or music, that was just bleeding me with all the opposite words that I was saying to myself. So I love Karen Drucker's music, and there's one little chorus: I don't have to be perfect, I'm doing the best that I can, I just need to give myself permission of being who I am. And it's something that I go back to time and time again. So I've now got, where if I catch myself thinking badly, I've now got replacements of the positive to put there. But you have to be mindful of the negative in the first place.
And you've got to want to change.
And you have, to be fair, I've got a lot of love and support in my family. But if you, and it doesn't matter how much money you've got in the world, you know, parents can throw therapy or whatever at you. But in your core, if you don't want to live, and there was, even when I thought I didn't want to live, there was obviously a fire within me that was still burning, because here I am still. If I'd taken, to be fair, if I'd taken paracetamol over ibuprofen, I wouldn't be here talking to you, Janet. You'd never have met me. It would have been a different story.
And the world would have missed out a lot. So you don't know, because you have a, you know, you might have a bad period, you can get out of it, and you don't know what amazing life is ahead of you. And
I'm so grateful for all the shit. And I'll say the word shit. I'm so grateful now for all the shit, because without that, I couldn't be here helping people, hopefully themselves, because you have to sometimes you're given the big stuff to experience so that you can then go on and make something of it to help others. And that's the way I think I like to look at it.
I totally agree with you there. For what seemed like 3 decades of not being in a good place and finally setting myself free, life is completely different. Still have wobbly days. I will put my hand up and still say there's still those days, but then I now know what I need to do to get me to spiral back up again.
That's it. And it's having that support. And then when I say support, that doesn't necessarily mean other people. It's knowing how you can support yourself, because it has still got to come from within. So 9 times out of 10, like, I love journaling, because basically journaling's a best friend. If no one else is around, I can go to a notebook, and when you're writing, you might sit there and think, I'm useless, I'm useless, I'm useless. You're not going to sit and write, I'm useless, I'm useless, I'm useless, unless you're at primary school being told to do lines. So how we write, the writing broke it up, and that started to break up that looping. And I know you use writing a lot as well.
Exactly. So yes, it's the power of words. So, you know, it is something that unfortunately is increasing, particularly in the UK. It is affecting men, women, teens, even children. It's touching lives. You know, I hope that in some way our little talk here can give you some inspiration, some hope, because, you know, the pain can be healed, and the pain can end.
Yeah. And if right now you're out there saying, no, it bloody can't, and you're totally disagreeing with what we're saying right now, just want to let you know you're not alone. You're not, because alone. I have been there. Exactly. And I know what that feeling of no light at the end of the tunnel feels like. I'm living proof you can move out of it, but that's my journey. You've got to take your journey. But just know that when you think you're alone, you're not the only one that's actually felt this bad.
No, exactly. Well, thank you, Sue. And yeah.
Thank you for this little impromptu video, but I think
important.
Yeah, good to talk.
Always good to talk. Always good to talk.
Especially to you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.